And we're going to read Granny Glittens and Her Amazing Mittens, a story you will not believe by Gertrude Crampton. We'll look at the pictures first. Here's Granny making some mittens. Looks like she's got a cat and a picture of somebody on top of her radio. Oh, she looks sad. Now she's going into her cupboard for something. Looks like she's dyeing something. And she's got some wood in a soup box. And there she is knitting and tasting, or she's tasting some yarn in this picture. And it looks like in this last picture there's some kids eating some mittens. Let's hear the story. Granny Glittens and Her Amazing Mittens, a story you will not believe by Gertrude Crampton. Once there was an old woman who made mittens from good wool yarn. She made fine warm mittens. Right into the mittens she could knit a boy on a sled, a girl on skates, 2 yellow ducks, or anything else you could name. All the mothers and fathers for miles around ordered mittens for their children from Granny Glittens. The needles would flash and knit yarn pictures in the old lady's kitchen from morning till night. Granny Glittens made her mittens because she liked to make mittens, and she made mittens to sell. Those mittens paid for the coal to keep Granny's little house warm. They paid for the egg for Granny's breakfast. They paid for the milk for Granny's black cat. Now, of course, Granny Glittens was very busy just before Christmas. Every child wanted a new pair of Granny's mittens for Christmas. The needles flashed in the morning, and in the evening, and in the middle of the day. But just before Christmas, everything went wrong. Oh, Granny Glittens had orders and orders for mittens. She had so many orders that she kept saying to herself, "Perhaps I can buy a fine new stove for my kitchen." Yes, the orders came in. It was the yarn that was wrong. Granny Glittens had to send to the city for yarn. She ordered red yarn, and brown yarn, and green yarn, and yellow yarn, and black yarn. But the store sent white yarn. Balls and balls of white yarn. Nothing but white yarn. With the yarn came a letter. "Dear Granny Glittens, we do not have red yarn, or brown yarn, or green yarn, or yellow yarn, or black yarn. All we have is white yarn. We have asked the other stores. They do not have red yarn, or brown yarn, or green yarn, or yellow yarn, or black yarn. All they have is white yarn. So we are sending you white yarn. We are sorry. The store." Oh, said Granny Glittens. "Nobody wants white mittens. What shall I do?" The black cat came into the kitchen. Granny said to him, "I must think, oh, I must think." So she thought and thought and thought. Supper time came. Granny was still thinking. At last the black cat began to cry for milk. "Poor cat," she said, "it is dark. You are hungry, and so am I. I will think some more later." She poured some milk for the cat. Then she opened her cupboard to see what she could find for herself. Red peppermints, green wintergreen, brown chocolate, black licorice, and yellow lemon drops. They were the colors she needed for her mittens. "Do you think?" she asked the cat. "Well, the only way to find out is to find out." She got out 5 pans from the cupboard, and she put them all in the stove. Then she put the peppermints in one, the wintergreen in another, the chocolate in the third, the licorice in the next, and the lemon drops in the last. Granny Glittens stirred the 5 pans very carefully with 5 spoons. Then she put a ball of white yarn into the peppermints. The yarn turned a beautiful red. She put a ball of yarn in each pan and stirred more carefully than ever. When each ball was the right color, she took it out and put in another. It was late that night, and everyone else had been sleeping for hours and hours before Granny Glittens had all the red and green and brown and yellow and black yarn she needed. "Oh, my goodness," she said to the cat. "I am tired, and I am so hungry I could eat this yarn. I forgot all about my supper." Just for fun and to show the cat how hungry she was, Granny Glittens bit off a small piece of the red yarn. It tasted good. Granny tasted the other colors, too. Granny Glittens smiled and smiled, and the next morning the knitting needles flashed and turned. The new mittens were wonderful. Not only did they have yellow ducks and fir trees and dancing bears and snowmen with black hats, the children could eat the yellow ducks and fir trees and dancing bears and snowmen with black hats. Granny Glittens sold so many mittens that she bought a lovely shiny new stove for her kitchen. And of course, she was knitting mittens all year round, because as soon as ever a mother or father bought bought a child a pair of mittens. The child said they were the best present they had ever had, and then ate them. Can you believe it? The end.